into the mix here. And we are live. Good morning. Happy Friday. Welcome to the Zoom In with Seth, David, and friends. Zoom in between Wall and We've had a quiet week this week on Wall Street. Well, it's funny how predictable.
Are you awake yet?
Well, it's funny how predictable it really was, because the market tanked. And then, of course, just like people said, if you follow the analysts like I do, they all said, just calm down. As soon as the initial reaction wears off, cooler heads will prevail. People will come in and make an emotion-free assessment of what's going on. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened, and the market started to come back. And I love watching people panic on it. Not that I love it. I don't have like an interest in people's pain, but it's just interesting to me to see how people panic on this stuff. And just by now, like, I feel like by now, come on, we should just know better, right? So the market takes a hit. Go buy something. Buy, when Sarah, when shoes go on sale, what do? Do you sell your existing shoes?
She who hates to shop.
Maybe I asked the wrong person. I just made an assumption. I made a very stereotypical assumption.
Yeah,
all women love to buy shoes. But my point is, when something goes on sale, we buy it. We don't sell it. And yet on the stock market, people react the exact opposite way, and they start selling off their stock and go into a state of panic. And that's the worst thing you can do when the market takes a hit like that. Now's the time to buy. Stocks are on sale. Go buy, average down on what you own. Buy more, especially if what you own are solid companies. Intuit stock is hitting record highs. I haven't checked in a day or so, but they had gone up as high as like $109, $110 a share, somewhere around there. And when I originally bought Intuit stock, I bought it at like 68. Unfortunately, sold it in the 90s. What?
What were they this time last year?
I don't know. Good look at it. I think this time last year they might have been more like around 68. I bought it, and then I wound up selling it when it was in the 90s because I just took the profits, and I thought maybe it'll come back down and I'll buy it back again, but that hasn't happened. And it's interesting. I guess it's almost like there's a fad now, because you have all these startups that do this, and everybody wants to follow Google's lead. So companies don't split stocks anymore. To make it more sort of affordable. I'm going to go into my TD Ameritrade account, and I'm curious to see what Intuit was at a year ago. I know it wasn't. I'm sure it was below 90. Where am I? Banking. But yeah, so the market did exactly what you'd expect. It took a hit, and then it started bouncing back. And it's like, don't panic, folks. So INTU is the symbol. And if I do the 1 year, the 52-week range, so the low in the last 52 weeks was $79.63. So that's not what it was necessarily a year ago, but that's the lowest it's been in the last 12 months. And today, actually, it's broken through a new record again. It's at 112.30 right now. So, Deborah, if you're trying to talk to us, you're muted. Just making sure.
She's talking to somebody else.
She's talking to someone else. But
yeah, my husband's talking to me. I figured to hear that. So.
Oh, gotcha. So yeah, and what's the Dow doing today? The Dow is up, not by a lot, 58 points. So anyway, interesting week on Wall Street. Main Street was kind of a quiet week. Now I love having the Between Wall and Main site live, because that's now my sort of gauge for Main Street. I look at what our contributors are writing about what's going on Main Street, and I love reading that stuff.
One of your contributors had an interesting article on QBO, whether it's better to start from scratch and keep the historical data in desktop or try to convert it.
That was Alicia.
Yeah, that was an interesting article.
Let's bring it up since you mentioned it. I'm going to share my screen. All right, do you guys see it yet?
Yeah, getting started was QuickBooks Online Converter, start from scratch.
Yep, so this is Alicia Pollock-Katz who wrote this, and I'm a big fan of trying where you can to not migrate the data and try and start scratch. I look at it as at least potentially a good opportunity to start over, because I don't care how good a set of books you keep for your clients. There's just over time, you just accumulate junk. And when I moved my own books over to QBO, I did not migrate. I just said, you know what? The data's there in the desktop versions. If I need to access it for any reason, I can. But I'm going to take advantage of the opportunity to start fresh. Plus, I think it makes sense from a lot of standpoints because you have an opportunity to kind of, over the years, your business evolves, things change, and you have really a platform that's on a different kind of footing. So you get the opportunity to kind of rebuild it in a way that's maybe better, more organized. I like the way the items in QuickBooks Online can be categorized so that then in the item list or products and services list, as it's called, show up kind of grouped by category. I just find that for me, because plus over the years, I had a lot of items that I'd accumulated in that list that I didn't need anymore. I didn't want anymore. So
it seems like if you need comparatives, you could just cut and paste from desktop and QBO into Excel and do your...
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons TBX is so popular is because I can obtain monthly totals to be just journal entered into your system in summary form, so you're not, and then you can do comparative financials within QBO.
Yeah, like Alicia says here, can you just use correct opening balances for all accounts to date? So you could use TBX to bring those balances in, and just start clean. I love the idea of being able to start clean, build a brand new chart of accounts, a brand new item list, and it's like have you ever gone into your house and like just rearranged the furniture in a room and really given it a makeover in terms of cleaning? It just feels good, right?
Yeah.
I look at it kind of like that. Like I got to give my books a fresh start and kind of a makeover, and I love it. Because it's just after so many years, and I have so much more experience with it now than I did when I originally set up my desktop QuickBooks file years ago. I felt like I was in such a good position to do so much better of a job of just structuring things and organizing things in a way that ultimately, when I look at my financial statements and other reports that I want to run, I get just information that's so much better out of it than I would have had I just migrated my data.
Well, it seems as a practical, you're kind of converting sketchy data into a new system, which may or may not convert properly. So it's kind of like a double whammy, in my opinion, that one, the data's not that great to begin with, and secondly, you could screw things up on the conversion.
Yeah, I mean, most of the conversions I've been doing have been really smooth. It's interesting. It seems like the one area where you have to be careful is, I think I was reading, if you're using Intuit Payroll on the desktop version, the payroll entries don't come over. If I remember correctly from what I read, you have to re-enter all the payroll.
Don't they come over as like checks or something like that, as opposed to payroll checks?
Something like that, yeah, because it's really a different payroll service. What?
Yeah, I guess that they're going to make sure that the bank side of the entry is correct, but you're not going to get all the other.
Yeah, so I recently had a client converting, and I converted them, I should say, and when I went to do it, I panicked for a minute because it looked like they, when I opened up their desktop file to do the migration, I got that prompt about the tax tables being updated for payroll taxes. And I thought, oh no, they're using Intuit Payroll, which means I'm going to have that problem. It turns out they had turned that service on, but they were actually using Paychecks for payroll.
Oh, good.
And so I was so relieved. I hate to say it because I love Intuit and I love using their products where I can, but it would have meant so much more work for me to do on the migration if I had to migrate a data file that had an Intuit integrated payroll service included. So it's funny to say, but I was so relieved when I found out that they're actually using Paychecks. And I got to say, I love Paychecks. As a service, I absolutely love them. I use them for Nerd Enterprises payroll, and now I have that client that I'm using them for. And I'll tell you bottom line. Bottom wine. That'd be a great name for a column, like if I'm just whining.
How about WHINE?
Yeah, exactly. When I want to run payroll, like with my own company, it's very simple. I get an email from my Paychecks rep that says, hey, you're just running your normal payroll. And I have, Erica, who's now, I call her my managing nerd, right? Like you have managing members, and so she's my managing nerd. And her pay changes based on, bless you, Adam, It changes based on a revenue share arrangement that we have. She gets to share the revenues on the clients that she works on. So the paycheck rep emails me, and I say, here's Erica's pay, and then it's done. It's just an email. I just reply to the email that I get. I don't have to worry about remembering. I just get the email from the rep, and I say, regular payroll for me, and here's Erica's number, and go run it. And then HubDoc pulls in my payroll reports, and I just love how drop dead simple it is with Paychex, because that's all I have to do. And you can actually import the Paychex payroll into QuickBooks. I don't bother because mine's simple enough. And I also like to do it in what I call the detailed method, where I create a payroll clearing account and record the individual paychecks. And then the transactions that come out of the checking account, I just offset to that clearing account so that it zeroes out, for the net pay. Because this way I get detailed reporting, and I like being able to go into QuickBooks and run a report that shows me who's making how much, and totaling that by month, especially for clients that do have larger payrolls. Yes, I can go into their payroll service and run the reports to get that information, but I like having it built into the P&L, where I can look at the monthly salaries and say, especially at year end when the client says, okay, I want to start giving people raises, and bonuses. It's just nice to me to be able to have that kind of reporting inside of QuickBooks and not have to go somewhere else to
How are you putting each check in? Just
manually.
You're just manually, or you have a memorized check and you just
go in and tweak the gross and I also keep the liabilities very simple. I have one payroll liabilities account. I don't care how much is federal.
Because they're drafting. I mean, they're.
Yeah, that information, I'll go to the payroll service if I need that detail. But for the most part, all I care about is here's the total that came out of the paychecks going into the liability, and then I split the tax payment up between the employer share and the portion that comes out of the liability. I don't care about breaking out the liabilities. Never have. I used to break it out into detail, and I thought I was doing such a great job as a bookkeeper. And the reality is, over time, I said, I've never once had to go back and look at that information. And so I said, and then if it goes off, if I make a mistake in data entry, now it's harder to research where the difference is coming from, because a lot of times what would happen is it wasn't even a mistake in the data entry per se. It was just I put like state withholdings into federal or vice versa, or I just mixed up the sub account and the drop down somewhere along the way, and that can take time to research and fix. So I said one liability account, keep it simple, and that's how I do it. It's just gross pay minus the liabilities on the paycheck side.
Plus, that's a better leverage of your time, not having to worry about all the detail. Just let somebody else handle the detail.
Yeah, again, for bookkeeping purposes, all I care about is that the liabilities came out of the checks and then went out and got sent into the government, and that liabilities account just has to zero out with each payroll. That's all I care about.
Seth, does Paychex let you get reports in a odd check range? Like for workers' comp purposes, I'll say, I need it from this date to this date, gross wages and overtime.
I think so. In general, I love their reports. There's two reports of theirs that I look at, the payroll journal and the cash requirements.
Yeah.
Because between those two reports, I have absolutely everything I need. I have all the individual paychecks on any given payroll. And I know if I go into the Paychex portal, I can say, give me all of those reports between this given date range.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can do it
do you handle many workers' comp audits? Because I handle all my clients' workers' comp audits.
No, I've had like 2 workers' comp audits that I had to deal with over the years. And, to be honest, I just ran the report. They were like desk audits, so it wasn't real in depth. I just had to run some reports in QuickBooks and send them to them to verify what the actual salaries were. And then they adjusted the workers' comp premium for the following year.
Right, because it's an annual process for every client.
Yeah. So. Yeah, well, except that a lot of people here in California use state fund for workers' comp.
Oh yeah.
Which is like it's I don't even know if it's actually state run, but it certainly seems and feels like it. It's the cheapest way to go.
Oh really? We don't have anything like that.
So instead of when you go through a private insurer, then you do the audit every year with state fund.
Yeah, we've got phone audits, we've got the paper audits, we've got the online audits, and then of course we have the ones that come here every single year.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see, I hate that stuff. It's just so disruptive. Like I get why they have to do it, but it's such a pain in the neck.
Hey, I made good money. And also, I'm very aggressive with some clients. I'll tell you one story. I had a client with 3 locations, and so I would just post whatever their payment was, the estimate for the next year, and then they either got a refund or they got an extra check. Big deal. So bookkeeping wise, it was never a big concern. Their payroll's really stable. A lot of subs, pretty stable. So we get there. I did not notice it because I was not doing full accrual for them at the time. But how this worked. Their new bill was $30,000 less than the prior year.
Wow.
And what happened was the auditor came in and skipped all the subs. So next year's auditor caught it. So they owed $30,000 for the prior year, and they owed $30,000 for the current year, and they owed another $30,000 for the estimate for the $90,000.
Did they have any penalties?
A shock. Okay. So now I'm really aggressive with certain clients. I have spreadsheets where I drop in all the wages by workers' comp code and actually calculate it out all based on their percentages based on their quote. And I accrue almost to the penny. And so when the auditors come in and I go, and I hand it to them, the quarterly spreadsheets, here's the journal, whatever you want. And if that bill comes in different, I want to know what it is.
Right. And
They know me. They know me, you know.
Yeah.
So, and I have saved, I had another one where the workers' comp auditor swapped the codes. So they were billed an extra $7,000. And I came back and went, It took us 9 months to get that $7,000 back. They do not like to re-audit. You have to really raise hell. But see, clients are at the mercy of all these numbers and these, you know, half the time the auditors don't even give you a copy of their spreadsheets and how they came up with the amount. You just get this bill or you get this refund. So it's some clients, it's a really big ticket item. So yeah, that's one of the things that I like to control. You know, I'm real aggressive with property taxes. I'm real aggressive with certain things, only because from a management side, it can save a client a lot of money. It's just part of what I do.
Right. And it's interesting you mentioned, you know, if you're doing the audits or you're handling the audits for the clients year in and year out, it does tend to be the same auditor. So you do build relationships with them and they'll work with you. I mean, one of the sort of CPA / mentor that I have out here in California that I often make reference to, you know, he's a VP of taxation at a big firm that he had sold his practice to some years ago. And he specialized, well, I shouldn't say specialized, he specializes in taxation. He's the VP of taxation at the firm now. But the point is he's handled a lot of audits with the IRS over the years. And the IRS has field offices all around. And so he has gotten to know the auditors. So he knows how to work with them. He knows how to cooperate with them. And he knows what they're looking for and how to give them, you know, what they need. So that, you know, and it's like any other business relationship. You build a relationship with these auditors. And they'll work with you. They just have a job to do. You know,
I know the personal desk numbers of our local Department of Revenue agents, especially the Department of Labor, because they're auditing everybody looking for, you know. And so some of the agents, what I do is I set up share file portals. And I gave them a login, and I had some of the agents, they weren't allowed to do that for a while. They used to do it, and then they went, and now they're coming back going, oh, that's really cool. We don't have to drive all the way to your office. And I start uploading everything and give them a login, and they still might want to see, you know, like one of them, one was real strict and wanted to see all the canceled checks for the whole year. Okay, I threw it up on a share file because I don't want them coming over, and they're so happy to get one more audit off their desk in a really easy way that they love it. So they all know me down there. They know I haven't had an IRS audit in, knock on wood, years. They're so understaffed. It's not the IRS that I worry about. It's the tax assessors, sales tax auditors, and the Department of Labor. They are hungry and looking for money. They're going after, and they go after even the little companies.
Are you getting more sales tax audits now?
I only have, since I'm more nonprofit oriented, I don't have that many that work with sales tax, but it's the same Department of Revenue office. I've actually had one auditor who had one auditor that was assigned an audit, And some of the other auditors went, "Oh, that's Sarah's. Don't don't waste your time." So I am so by the book, that they know that if actually I dropped a client and had an agent call and said, "Why'd you drop this client?"
He's cheating.
I can't really tell you. But, if somebody's not doing what they need to do, they're not a client of mine. So I think I've been doing this for 30 years and been in the same town. So, you're right. I used to build relationships with bankers. Those are gone. I mean, when's the last time you had a banker that stayed any amount of time?
Yeah, especially the bigger banks.
Oh gosh, with all the mergers and all that. I mean, I don't. So that's become a real pain. But when it comes to governmental agencies, it's real valuable to, hi, how are the kids? I'm serious. So.
Well, most of them don't really. You're not exactly a real popular person if you're an auditor. If you're an auditor, you can't have a strong need to be liked if you're an auditor.
Well, that's why I left being an auditor. It was a big part of it. I hated the idea. I was working as
being
an
the bad
auditor.
guy.
Well, I was working as an auditor for the federal government, and we were doing Medicare and Medicaid audits. And when I walked in there, part of my job was I had to interview employees, for example, to determine if their entire functions were on the Medicare side, because a lot of these providers had a Medicare cost report, and then they had the private side. And some of them were trying to stick their private side costs onto the Medicare side so that the government would reimburse them. And a lot of times what we would do is we would look at a person's job description, and based on how they answered our interview questions, we would do a write-up on how their duties seemed to be divided. And sometimes we'd adjust a portion of their salaries out of the cost report and say, X percentage of their duties seem to be more related to the private side than the Medicare side. And it was obvious that these employees had been prepped by their employers about what to say and about how careful they need to be, because it could cost them money. And I'm sure they were told in some way, shape, or form that if it didn't go well, it could cost them their job, because if Medicare's not going to pay their salaries, they can't afford to. And some of these people would literally be shaking in the conference room with me when I would be sitting there interviewing them. And I was this young kid out of college with a crew cut and a suit and tie, and I hated the idea that somebody was scared of me like that. I remember it was actually an awful feeling. At the same time, I'd see some of my cohorts that I work with seem to get off on that power trip, and I was just like, that's just not who I am. And, it was one of the big reasons I ultimately realized that I couldn't stay in that field doing that job. I hated it.
When I worked for a title insurance company about 4 years ago, my boss's policy was to stick the auditors in the most uncomfortable spot.
Oh, yeah, that's a good trick.
One time we stuck them right into the file room. People were kind of leaning over to get the files. And,
or no air conditioning. Oh, sorry, the air is really bad in here.
Come and say, how are you guys doing? You done yet? You done yet? It's like,
yeah. Or you get in their space. You sit real close to them. So you just annoy the They know.
I was an auditor and absolutely hated it. I thought, nobody likes you. You're bothering people all the time. And I'm like, Sarah, I have friends at the Florida Department of Revenue. So if I have a question, I call them up. I just got a client that has a sales. Just got a client as a sales tax audit, and he called the client. And the client says, well, do you have an outside accountant? And he said, oh, yeah, it's the behind the scenes. And I work with Debbie Kilmer. He goes, oh, well, your stuff's probably perfect because I know Debbie.
Exactly. I tell you what, having that reputation is gold.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely gold. I have one agent at the Department of Revenue. I call him George for Georgia. I've called him George. And George! And I keep telling him, I said, if you're going to retire, you call me because I'm retired. We've sort of grown up with our careers through this. We've grown up together, and and he's invaluable. Oh gosh, because he'll go, don't call Atlanta. Just call me. Because he just fix things without all that bullshit.
Well, from the auditor's standpoint, how many people treat you like a human being? I know I've done some auditing, and you can tell people didn't want you around.
Yeah.
I know. I tell clients, look, they're just doing their job. Be nice to these guys.
But
they're just.
And I was just going to say, the experienced people know better. The people who are experienced, the people who are sort of mature because they've been in business for a while and they've been through audits before and they know it's just standard operating procedure, they know better. They know, look, you just treat the auditor with respect, and the more you cooperate with them, and assuming you truly don't have anything to hide, just give them whatever they want.
Right. Or be proactive. See,
yeah,
you do this
exactly.
long enough, you know what they want, you know what they need, you hand it to them.
Yeah.
And the more you help them, I mean, I talk to accountants who go, I do the bare minimum now, you know. And I'm like, no. I go out of my way.
Yeah, in fact.
Feed them what I think they need. And I tell you what, it comes back tenfold.
You know, it's funny you say that, Sarah, because I just recently had a conversation with a CPA who, he's one of these real conservative guys, like doesn't play any games, which of course I respect. But we were talking about the fact that even if you're a corporation, if you have, I think it's under 250,000 in assets and or revenue, then you don't have to file a balance on the return.
Right, do it anyway.
You don't need to include it. And I said, I just figure most clients probably do it anyway because it's good to have it on the return. And he says, absolutely not. And he says, because I never give the IRS anything more than I absolutely have to give them. And I get it where he's coming from. He's concerned that it could open up a can of worms. You just, so you give them as little as possible. But I think on the other side of that, like you said, Sarah, and Deborah, it's just you give them, you cooperate with them and give them what they need. And if you truly don't have anything to hide, then no, who cares, right? And that's always like, that's always like, I never get the sort of paranoia. Like, why would you care about having to reveal it? Like, people complain, oh, I don't want to give my whole QuickBooks desktop file with all the years of history. Who cares if you have nothing to hide? And I get it. It could open up a can of worms. There could be something that you unknowingly did that could cost you money. You know what? I would want to know that my books are right at the end of the day. If I made a mistake, I would want to actually suck it up, pay the taxes, do whatever I have to do, because once you get a clean audit, they leave you alone. So,
well,
yeah.
With an IRS, I have kind of a don't ask, don't tell. If they don't ask, I don't tell them. I mean, I don't volunteer information because
right.
One thing you want to do is extend either the audit or expand the audit or also expand the number of years.
No, there's a time to be quiet.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying you should just like overwhelm them and say, oh, here's my bank account login. But the point is that when they ask for something, just give it to them, and make it easy for them.
I've got one. Workers' comp auditor. Oh, this guy comes in, clean little company, nothing to it. And he says to me, every company cheats. And I'm going to that pissed me off. And I'm like,
you make me mad.
Kind of insulting.
So anyway, and this is the one that did the $7,000, by the way. Anyway, I've been working with this guy now for almost 20 years, right? So we had to come to an agreement. He knew I didn't like him, and he didn't like me. But through the years, he sort of mellowed so he came into one client and installing hardwood floors is a really high workers' comp rate. My client does no hardwood. None. Okay, if they do, it is with a sub who does nothing but hardwood, and they have their own workers' comp. So he comes in, he goes, he said, I really need to look at you this year because you had 5 workers' comp claims and 3 of them were hardwood. So I, excuse me, go in the other room, call my client, going, what the hell? And he's like, they're cleaners, they're carpet cleaners. He was lying to me.
Mm-hmm.
He was trying to trip me up to see if I would, And I came out I nailed him that time. So anyway, through the years, it's become this little game now. And he comes in and I'm like, and he'll go, I'll find it. And every once in a while, he'll find some stupid thing where or like last year, I had somebody who had workers' comp through a certain date and then it dropped off and I accrued it to the penny, man. And he put the whole year as none. And I had handed it to him anyway. So he came back and go, okay. So get this. The last time he came into an audit, he walked in, picked up all his copies of that and went, see ya. And I went, because he usually sits here for hours. But I think, and then I get a Facebook friend thing.
Now that's something I would not want to be like friends on Facebook.
No.
I'm sorry.
Maybe you just figured you'd go right on someone else's doorstep,
I don't know, but it's funny because he went and audited my brother's business. And he walks in and he goes, any relation to Sarah Laidlaw? Like, yeah.
That's
And he went,
funny.
oh. My brother's like, don't hold that against me. Oh, but he, you know what? He taught me a lot, though. He really taught me a lot. He has this binder of fake workers' comp certificates, right? And he actually sat down with a bookkeeper because he went through all their work and he found one, you know? And so he was teaching me, and how would you ever know that for this stuff? Like, this insurance company doesn't use this font. Or this, you know, or your numbers don't start with whatever. And then there's apparently a website that you can go to actually test workers' comp. I'm like, what bookkeeper, what owner knows to do this? You get a workers' comp certificate and you trust it. But if the auditor finds it and you didn't find it yourself, you're caught.
So you're liable?
That's a lot of burden.
That's over the top, though. I mean, real owner to have to do that, to be an auditor of workers' comp forms.
No, it's like a W-9. If it's signed by the vendor, you're off the hook. If they're lying and they're not a corp, and you have a signed W-9, you're you know, off the hook for penalties and all that. But there's nothing like that in workers' comp. So very interesting. So hey, so it taught me a lot. So, you know, I sat down and was really appreciative, and it was really interesting and all that. And I think that's where we sort of turned the corner, because there's a mutual respect there. But don't come in and lie to me.
That's bad.
You're gonna hear about it. I'm not a quiet.
Hey, so we're actually starting off the hour talking about something different. We got into the audits, but talking about the whole banking, you know, login system and two-factor authentication. You know, I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, I spoke to somebody a little over a year ago who's, let's just say it's sort of like a high-profile person on the internet. You know, somebody who would likely be a target for something like this. You know, because people, I'm sure, would expect he probably makes a lot of money, and based on that, they'd want to target him and try and steal his identity. And he had his identity stolen, and he said, based on the whole experience, he said, you know, unfortunately, there's very little that you can do. You know, when somebody has stolen your identity, it's very difficult to track down who it is and, you know, and make them accountable for it. And he said, based on his whole experience, the only way to, and there's no way to ensure security, but the closest you can come to assurance that you have it is using the two-factor authentication. But it does, especially, I think, from our perspective as accountants who are trying to service our clients and get access to their information legitimately so that we can do the jobs we need to do. And we were discussing about, at least for my own case, you know, I don't want to have, let's put it this way, I want to have things set up so that there's minimal need for client intervention, right? I just want to be able to do my job without having to involve them. That's the whole point, is to get them out of the equation so they can focus on their business and let me handle the business matters, the accounting matters. And so it can be really disruptive when I have trouble accessing their account because of these extra authentication processes. In one client's case, I actually have them set up to where they've actually added my cell phone number as one of the options that you have to get sent the code for that two-factor authentication. But have you guys had experience with this? Have you found it disruptive, or is it not a big deal for you, or what's your experience?
One thing I found, I use Zoho and I have two-factor authentication, and I'm not sure if it's AT&T or if it's actually my phone, but a lot of times I don't get the text message, or I get it after the time period is expired, and so it's just a real major PITA, you know, to have to try to, you know, time it so I can get the text message in enough time to add it in. And it seems like it's particularly Zoho and sometimes QBO. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not sure if it's my phone, if it's AT&T, but that's one thing I've found that's not very exciting.
Phone number, I have a phone system. By the time it comes through the whole voice system, I can answer, and it's like, and if you have any more questions, or, you know, whether it's a RoboCop or whatever, but by the time it gets to me, it's over. So.
It seems to expire after a certain period of time. I'm not sure if it's a minute or what, but it doesn't stay out there for.
No, usually it's like 5 minutes. And Zoho, by the way, also uses Google Authenticator. which is maybe a little better, but I've had problems where I enter the code that I get to Google Authenticator and it doesn't take it. And I think it's because somehow I've jumbled up my accounts with Zoho and Google Authenticator. So it's not taking the code that I have for my authenticator because it's looking for a code from a different authenticator. I don't know. It's weird. But so then they give you the option also to do it via text message. So I always end up having to go that route with it because my Google Authenticator code with Zoho never works. I'm sure it's one of those things that I probably just have to call them and get on with their support. But again, that's another time-consuming thing that I don't have time for. I mean, I don't know about you all, but I have a lot of times I get so frustrated because I have, so much time in the day and I'm always trying to get so many things done. And anytime something like that stops me and slows me down, it's like it's like I go into almost like a rage, like I want to kill somebody. Like I don't have time for this.
It's like
I start feeling like I'm going all diva, but I don't have time for it. And it's so frustrating because I just want to move forward and get my job done. And these little things can really trip you up.
Well, it's like you're spending money for no benefit. I mean, it's just like it's
yeah,
draining your time account or whatever.
I mean, even having to get on the phone with like the franchise tax board here in California.
Oh,
if
yeah.
you don't call, they open the lines at 7 a.m. If you're not calling in at like 6:58 a.m. to get like first in line, your hold time is going to be 3 hours easily.
Mhm.
And so what I'll have to do then is leave it on speaker on hold while I'm working. But again, what kind of work, like especially the nature of what I do, a lot of times I'm logged in with somebody and I'm providing a training session. Can you imagine I'm on hold with the franchise tax board and I'm in the middle of a QuickBooks training? I say, hey, do you mind holding on a second? I just have to go deal with this tax issue,
Well, I find when I call the
You're on
IRS,
hold with them and if it's 4 o'clock, they hang up.
Yeah. I've had that happen here too. Yeah.
It's like, we're done for the day. Goodbye.
Sorry, goodbye.
Whoever's in the queue, sorry.
Imagine we did that to our clients. Sorry, 4 o'clock. Can't help you.
the IRS calls them courtesy disconnects,
It's
which doesn't seem very courteous to me, especially if I've been on hold for 2 hours.
More like
and
a
all of a sudden-
courtesy FU.
Well, I find that when I'm on hold with the IRS, it's really hard to focus on something else because when I get
right.
the IRS, I have to have my CRM open
Right.
so I can take notes, and I have to have the client's, POA if I need to fax it and all this crap. And it's
Right.
really hard to kind of do that and at the same time try to really focus on another client.
Well, that's why we all hate to call software support into it because
Yeah.
we're gonna you just know it's just gonna suck up a lot of your time.
And I started billing like half my rate just for hold times because I figured that it's kind of hard because the client's not really getting a major benefit out of it, waiting on hold. But on the other hand, my time is I can't afford to give it away just for 2 hours and just sit and do nothing.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, luckily now you can get a lot of things done online. But still, some of these things I need to get a live person so I can get confirmation that what I need to get done is done.
I yell that at phones a lot. Give me a human. Okay, wait, human.
Well, I hate oftentimes we're trained to just hit 0, just pound that 0 button. And then it says, sorry, that's not a valid option.
And then when you finally get one, you go, human. They usually laugh.
Yeah.
I've heard some of the advanced pro advisors say that I guess they get tied into a higher level of support.
For QuickBooks support, you mean? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they say it makes a big difference.
Yeah, for pro advisors, if you have a pro advisor account, you do get better support, and it's always U.S. based, so that you get somebody where there's no sort of language barrier. And I'm sorry if that sounds terrible, but that can also really slow you down when you're dealing with somebody where English is clearly not their first language, and it becomes very difficult to communicate with them. And moreover, in those cases, I found more often than not, they're going by a script.
Yep.
So you get on the phone with them and you try and explain the problem, and they say, and you can tell they're reading from a script.
Yeah.
I'm very sorry that you're having this problem. I will do my best to make sure I can help you with it. And meanwhile, their name is like John Smith, even though their accent makes it clear that they're.
And then they say, we should upgrade to enterprise. And I'm like, no, this is not a sales call. I don't need to upgrade to enterprise.
For everything. Just upgrade to enterprise. Sell in advanced inventory, even though you don't have inventory.
A little cross-selling there,
No, but it's bad. I had a client get sold into something. He called for support. And next thing they had him signing up for a subscription-based QuickBooks Premier product where and then he got locked out of his data because he didn't pay the subscription because he didn't understand what he had gotten into, and he couldn't get access to his own data. I got on the phone with some of my friends and into it, and I screamed bloody murder. I was like, you better make this guy whole. I want him out of that product. I want him back into his normal desktop product, and I want all his data in there. He better not have lost a thing.
I heard that too. I had a thing that we bought. I like to put him on QuickBooks Accountant Edition because of all the bells and whistles.
Yeah.
And they called up for support. And they took him off that and put him on Pro for the subscription. And I went,
yeah.
you know. And they refunded the difference between the Pro and because they said, oh, you don't need the Accountant's Edition. And I'm like, yeah, we do, because when I go in to support them for the toolbox or whatever it was, you know, then I want to be able to do that. It's a homeowners association with all the reports that they want. So it was just easier with the reversal of the entries and everything. I said, you know, don't be doing that to my customers. I'm the Pro advisor. Know what
I'll be the one to tell my customers which product they need.
Exactly.
But do they have do they have a program where they have quotas to how many people they can cross-sell on new products? Or
who knows?
Who knows? You know, but I think they're told to push enterprise on people because obviously there's a big problem.
Enterprise or QBO, yeah.
So I don't presume to know actually what they're told, but it certainly seems that way.
Yeah, based on the behavior. You know?
Based on the behavior.
Well, the bad part is, too, sometimes they'll Google QuickBooks Help and they'll get roped into one of these scam companies.
Oh, we were talking about that the other day. What's it called?
QuickBooks, I don't know, 123 or something like that.
Yeah, but yeah, here's a question. Who was it that was, somebody came after them because their logo was similar or the same color as somebody who went into business way after they did. But yet, like if we're pro advisors, we sign a thing that we're not going to put QB, QuickBooks, all that in our domain name, in our advertising, all that. How many domain names are out there that say QuickBooks? And interest doesn't go after them.
Well, they have a choice to make. Look, obviously, if they start going after people who do that, they're going to alienate people. So I'm sure they have to balance it out. At the same time, they have an obligation to protect their trademark, because if they don't, then what that does is it ratifies people to infringe upon it. And so because when it comes down to any kind of a legal case over a trademark, if you can't show that you've made every effort to protect your trademark, you can lose it. So you have to, so trademark law.
Maybe they lost it.
What?
Maybe that, because I find it odd that they haven't.
I doubt they've lost the trademark. I think
QuickBooks?
you know, again, I can only guess at this. I certainly can't speak on to its behalf. But if I had to guess, I'd say they probably just made a decision that they don't want to alienate the people who are actually trying to support their products. And as long as nobody's actually hurting their brand, you know, I mean,
this company's hurting their brand. This company actually misleads people to think they are signing up for Intuit's support.
Yeah, that's a whole different area. I'm sure
a different area.
Intuit probably still has to make a decision. Are we going to spend the money to go after these people? And every time we go after one, 3 more are probably going to sprout up somewhere else. You know, so I'm sure all these things are decisions that have to be made at several steps up the sort of food chain, you know, before they decide who are we going to go after and to what extent, you know.
Yep.
It's you know, I'm sure it's not an easy call, but there was somebody, I think, unrelated to QuickBooks, who had a branding and logo for their bookkeeping business. I think they posted on Facebook within the last week or two about how somebody else had come after them and tried to get them to take down.
That's what I'm talking. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
I forget who it was. And it was like nobody knew that this company that was going after them even had that brand somehow.
Oh, it's Thomson Reuters.
It was Thomson Reuters, that's right.
Thomson Reuters has a new little program, and they named it, oh, my memory.
They named it something that apparently is similar to what somebody else's bookkeeping business was named.
She's been in business for
Is it Odeo or something like that?
No, it was,
Reuters?
Oh, crap.
Yeah, I can't
everybody's
think
like, just give it up. Because I had a client with a little shoe store who'd been in business forever, and she had a website and everything. So this company who has sort of similar name, big web presence, no, the logo was, you know, it had a shoe in it. That was about the only similarity. Colors weren't the same, everything.
Oh, here it is. I've got it. So it's actually my good friend Stephanie Travis. It's like that's what I love about the Facebook group search. So she says, "Hello, I've received the below email and it's legit. I've hired a lawyer to advise me. I have no interest in fighting this, but my lawyer said I may have a chance to keep my domain name based on the fact that I started using it before Thomson Reuters did, and the class of goods are different. Just sharing this here as an FYI. If you've dealt with this before, I'd love to hear from you. I'll keep you all posted." And then here goes the email. It's dated June 8th, 2016. "Dear Stephanie Travis, this is our second communication with you. As you're aware, Thomson Reuters is the owner of numerous federal trademark registrations for our OneSource mark.
OneSource.
Without Thomson Reuters permission or authorization, the domain name onesourceaccounting.com. And yeah, Stephanie's been in business with this brand for like 100 years. If anything, suing them. The domain name incorporates the famous OneSource mark. Famous? According to
never heard of it.
Yeah, real good job of being famous. The domain name incorporates the famous OneSource mark and suggests that Thomson Reuters sponsorship or endorsement of your website. I mean, this is so full of shit.
Yeah.
As part of our Thomson Reuters trademark enforcement program, be assured that we will continue to monitor your websites to verify your compliance with this letter. Failure to do so will force us to defer this issue to our trademark attorney for further actions. Should you require additional information or wish to discuss this issue, please contact the undersigned." Do you know what this makes me want to do? This makes me want to do everything in my power to make sure I never do business with Thomson Reuters ever again. Because what a shitty thing to do to a really good person.
And I would blast that. The first thing I said is blast it all over social media. Because when you go to an attorney, first of all, they're like, dollar signs. And then they're, the path of least resistance is, well, then just give up your domain name. That they've got deep pockets.
And that's what she's inclined to do, it sounds like, which sucks. Because she's had that business and that name and that trademark forever. Right. I've known Stephanie for probably, I don't know, maybe 10 years.
How dare a company come in with something new and then go across the country and go after everybody who uses that name? Where did they get off or have the right to do that? And how did they, so then I looked into, all right, well, some people say, well, you should trademark your name. And it's an expensive little process to do that. And not many legal, small companies do that. Now, she registered it with her state. So she's got, that's important. So that will help her. But how much money is she going to be out? So my shoe store, I told them, it's just such a crock. Because they're throwing out these letters across the country. And I'm like, you know what? Ignore it. Ignore it for now and see if it gets worse. She went to an attorney, spent all this money. Oh no, she had to get legal name. She ended up doing a legal name change, logo change, signage on her stores, domain name. And she'd been in business in this town for 25 years. Within 2 years, she was under.
Yeah.
Under. She lost all those years of momentum. And it's just, sore subject.
Yeah, but it's just an awful thing. And that may be why Intuit has chosen not to engage in this kind of enforcement, because it would put a really bad taste in my mouth. And it's interesting because years ago I had a site called QuickBooksAnswers.info. And because so much of what I do is providing answers for to people who have questions about QuickBooks. And then I started hearing the buzz that I seem to hear about once or twice a year, where all of a sudden I'll hear from people for whatever reason. It'll be something that gets talked about more at sometimes than others, where I'll start hearing that, quote unquote, Intuit's going to start cracking down on this kind of stuff. And, just out of sheer concern that A, it is an infringement on their trademark, and B, on the outside chance that they did decide they wanted to enforce it, I don't want to get stuck with a brand that I've built that I can no longer use. And thirdly, I decided also that in the bigger picture, I wanted to just broaden the scope. So I didn't want people to come in thinking I'm a QuickBooks only shop. Right? So that's literally why and how I came up with. And then I searched. I said, okay, well, what variation can I do on the theme? And I came up with schoolofanswers.com. And I was so shocked that it was available, and I said, boom, done, I'm in. This doesn't infringe on any brands. Nobody's got that sort of cornered. And that it was like a perfect name, because it's like where you to go to get schooled on answers to whatever questions I have the experience that enables me to answer them, So
how to walk the dog.
It would seem like
you can do anything.
It would seem like with social media, companies would be somewhat reluctant because these emails make it posted on Twitter or Facebook and go viral. And
well, there may also be, I don't know the law, but I suspect if Reuters saw that Stephanie had posted that on Facebook, they might even compel her to take that down. That in itself could be subject to terms that say you're not allowed to. I don't know. It's just, it gets weird with this kind of stuff. And these big companies, especially when they're taking that kind of an approach towards things, they're bullies.
They're bullies. And people don't
to.
like people beating up the little guy.
Right. But they're bullies. So they're going to bully you into doing what they want. And they're also going to bully you into not telling anybody that they're trying to, get you to do what they want. That becomes part of the whole bullying, mechanism, if you will. They'll say, look, you can't use that name and you can't tell anybody that they're stopping you from using the name. They'll try and get a gag order on you from the courts even, if need be, so that you're not allowed to talk about it.
By that time, it's out.
Yeah. It's just a lousy thing to do, and it sounds like the actions of a company who's desperate for some reason. And I've never heard of, I've been to all the trade shows that Thomson Reuters shows up at. I shouldn't say, I've been to a lot of them, right? A lot of the ones that we all go to, they've been at Sleater, they've been at the Cal CPA show here at LAX every year. And, they're just, I've never heard of any OneSource brand being associated with them.
Never.
So, especially when they try and characterize it as, quote, famous, it's just, I'm sorry, but it's just total BS. It's, there's nothing famous about it. It's bad.
But did you see that YouTube video a couple years ago about this United broke this guy's guitar and he created a song about it?
Yes. That was great. That was great because they refused to do anything for it. That was awesome. That was classic. That's what you call poetic justice. All right.
So Adam says he loves Gusto for payroll.
Yeah,
Gusto is too simple for my clients.
It's gotten better. But one of the problems I have with it is that you can't really do departments unless that's cheap. So one of the issues I have is if I have an S Corp where I have to segregate the officer's salary, there's nothing in the Gusto infrastructure that allows for that. And that comes up all the time. Most of my clients are S Corps, and I need that. Now, granted, I can book an adjustment, but it's one extra thing I have to do. And, with Gusto, the way they pull the money out on the banking side does not line up with how the information imports. So if you're going to use their import, then you have to do the clearing account. And I did a video on this back when it was still called Zen Payroll. And their team actually uses my video to teach people how to do the how to do that workaround where you use the clearing account so that it doesn't matter that the banking doesn't line up. Because it's weird the way they pull the money out. Like most payroll companies will pull out one payment for the net payroll, one payment for the taxes, and then the third will be for the fees, right? Theirs, they pull it out differently. I want to say, I forget if they do it all in one lump sum, but the bottom line is the way they pull it out does not match up in the banking with the way it comes in when we import it, so that reconciling becomes a mess at that point. So you have to do the payroll clearing so that you do the import into a payroll clearing, then you pull the banking out and make that be a transfer from the actual checking account over to the clearing so that it zeroes out the clearing, which is fine. It's not a big deal that you have to do that, but just I don't understand why they can't just make it so that the banking lines up, so that people don't have to use the clearing account. The only reason I otherwise use the clearing account is, like I said earlier, I want to enter the detailed paychecks, the individual paychecks, so I have that detail for reporting purposes. But if you don't care to do that, and especially if you have like 100 employees, you definitely don't want to do that. Because imagine having to enter 100 paychecks every other week or something.
Well, that's where HubDoc has been awesome for us with the ADP, because we'll get a notification that a client just did their payroll, and it brings in all the reports that I need, and we can pop in. We've got memorized journal entries.
Yeah.
We just fill them in. We've got the little check. We got the, and we've got our little routine going, and we don't have to go online to get it anymore. And
yeah. Now, if you have, like Adam says, most of my clients are smaller businesses, so it works perfectly for what I need, and that's absolutely true. If you have a small business with simple needs and it's not an S corp where you don't care about making the extra journal entry for the officer's salaries, then Gusto is a great product, and it's gotten better because initially my other complaint was I couldn't do an easy offset to a payroll. So again, with the S Corp, I have an officer's salary. A lot of times what I'm doing is I'm zeroing out the net check and offsetting that against the distributions on the bookkeeping side, so that this way they're taking out distributions throughout the year, and then we run a $0 net check so that the net pay just goes, it's like they put the money back, right? This way, because a lot of times the S Corp officer, we're just going to run one big payroll at the end of the year, for like $100,000 just to get all the taxes paid in. Because when you do that through payroll, you don't get hit with penalties because it's as though you paid in evenly throughout the year.
Right.
So that's what we do, is because we don't know how much we want to pay the officer. We want to gauge that and see what's their income look like. So like around the end of November, we start doing a little projection and say, all right, here's what the income is so far. Based on that, here's what we know we need to pay the officer in salaries to make sure that they're penalty free. And so we just run that lump sum payroll, but they don't want to take the net check. So throughout the year, they've been taking out distributions. And in the bookkeeping
Auditors
part,
don't like that trick.
what?
Payroll auditors don't like that.
Yeah, but it's done all the time. I've done it for years with my clients. I do it for myself. Eventually, what I did for my own, because I didn't like having to come up with all the money for the taxes at the end of the year, was that I just said, you know what, I'm just going to do a once monthly payroll.
Yeah.
And Paychex has an S Corp sort of pricing plan that allows for that very nicely. You can do one payroll a month with it, and the fees are reasonable for that. But it's only for one person, like me, where I'm a one-person S Corp. And as soon as I hired somebody, I got kicked out of that plan, and now I have to do it differently. But still, the point is, I just do my once monthly payroll for me, and I still zero out that net check, so that week to week I might pull money out. I'll take ATM withdrawals or whatever and book those as distributions, and then I zero out the net check and offset my distributions with that. All right, so let's see what Adam says. I do have one payroll on zero, and I'm transitioning. Last CPA created year-end 2015 adjusting entry for everything. No description.
No descriptions.
Was listed as current asset on balance sheet. I am also in the midst of doing their return for 2015. Journal entry looks like they just dumped shit wherever.
Gosh. I know. When you've been in town long enough, which accountants in town do that crap.
Yep. All right, we have 2 minutes left, and I want to do a quick unboxing because I bought myself a new toy.
What'd you get?
I've been trying to really step up my game with the videos.
Yeah.
Now that I don't have the videographer that I had anymore when I was over there with School of Bookkeeping.
Right. What'd you get?
I had to get a camera that would do really well on HD video.
Really? What'd you get? Ooh, write it down.
I got the Nikon D7200 DSLR.
Like with my little camera, which is supposed to be high def, am I going like okay and then green and then okay? I mean,
No.
I don't know what you guys are seeing, but what I'm looking at is like, holy.
No. Not same thing.
This is no ordinary. This DSLR camera has its own. It has Wi-Fi, so I can take pictures and upload them to the internet right away. But the main reason I got it is for the video. Because I also bought these professional grade lavalier mics. So now I can shoot my own sort of live action high def video and splice it into my screencast videos for a really professional product when I'm producing videos online.
Now you're having the same problem I'm having when you've got light behind you.
Yeah, because I've got what that's called is that means it's very hot. I've got very bright light behind me. So.
Right.
And that's trying to,
it's trying to compensate.
You always want the light going towards you, so I do. I have a light right up here. It's not really the right kind of professional lighting. But
I keep trying to close my shades and stuff, which I hate. Now, sometimes of the year it's okay, but.
So this is my new bad boy camera.
Holy mackerel.
This
it's
thing.
A camera. Doesn't it look like you can go out and just take.
Yeah, no, this is a real professional quality camera. And
hey, Sarah, did you try to unmute, or do you have a light by your computer that might be causing lighting issues?
What?
If you have a light by your computer, by your camera on your computer.
Do I have it near it?
A light.
So if anything, you want to have a light behind your camera pointing at you to get a better quality image. And you want as white a light as possible. So a lot of times these desk lamps don't really give you the right kind of light.
That's what I mean. I need to rethink this whole thing.
Yeah. So and look, there are lights you can pay for that are like $2,000 to get real.
Deborah's looks great. So I don't know, like, what's Deborah doing? But
It's called shine.
Your
She's got
what?
sunlight.
Mine's sunshine.
Sunshine.
See, there's
Yeah, but it's not behind. It's not behind.
no.
Now, does my image not look crisp to you, Sarah?
Amazingly, yes, but you've got that big white glare.
Big white blob behind
Yeah,
you.
that's because I've got sunlight coming in from behind the shades, so it gets hot. You know, that's what's called, you know, hot. It's you know, so eventually what I'm going to do is I'm going to get something dark, probably right behind it, to block out the sunlight so that it's not so hot behind me. In a way, I like it though, because I feel like I pop off the screen a little bit more against that. But it's not good for balance.
That you do.
This side of my face is darker than this side, you know, and that's something I've learned to notice, you know, when
When I put on this little light, I go really dark because in this sky, it'll like try to shoot out there instead of, I don't know.
Yeah. So the real way to do it is you want two lights on either side of you at an angle pointed at you. And that will balance the light perfectly. And the webcam is like it's hungry for light. It needs light to get a really good rendering of an image.
I bought that doorbell one, the Ring, that where if somebody comes anywhere near the front of the
Oh,
house.
is it a door cam?
Yeah, I love it. Except that because I have an overhang, it's compensating. So like for 2 seconds, it's perfect. And then it just goes washed out.
Oh, no.
Worthless, you know.
So you need a little light
What is
out
it,
there that's
Sarah,
pointed
that
at
you
the
want?
person.
Huh?
What did you purchase?
It's called Ring. If
It's
they
like a
ring
door
the
cam, a doorbell cam.
it's awesome because they can like ring the doorbell. If somebody's gonna break in their house, chances are they're gonna, you know, ring the doorbell first.
Somebody's
If they
home.
ring the doorbell, I can say yes, and then I'm sorry, I'm bathing the kids. I can't come to the door. You know, so it's wonderful if you're not home, or and then it's real. You can do like 30 feet. You can do real, you know,
How hard is
Where
it to
did you
install?
get it?
online.
Where did you get it? Online?
How hard is it to install?
Easy. I don't know.
It's called
My husband did it.
RING.
But what's great is like I was in the house and I had a client who drove up and then didn't see my lights on and was driving off, and I really needed to talk to them. And I'll get a little notice and I can hit the button and see the camera. And so I'm not flying out the front door. But now with the motion thing, if a storm comes up, like I have a lot of plants by the front door, so it'll, you know, it's waking you up. So, or if the yard people are here, I'll turn it off. But it really is great. The UPS guy loves it because he, you know, they come in, they put the package down, and I go, "Thank you." And he's like, "Where are you?" And so I came out, and he's like, "I'm getting that for my mom." But yeah.
Is it like a monthly fee for? I mean, how does that work?
Oh, there's the free one. We're paying some monthly fee or an annual fee because we want to keep the videos.
Okay, so is it? Although the free's probably like 30 days, it keeps and then deletes them.
Yeah, it's not very long, but I like you can go online and you can go back, and so if something happens, you're going to have video. But I'd love cameras everywhere, or at least a sign when you come onto the property that says "Smile."
Smile. You're on Candy County.
Yeah, maybe that'll make them go down the street. But anyway, but same problem. It's all washed out, and so they've been working with software, trying to push software updates that where we can self-adjust, and it's just not out yet. So, you will.
All right, got to cut things off. We got to run. It's after the hour, and I've got a lot of work to do. So you all have a great holiday weekend. And Gina is here with us, but she's been quiet. But I'm assuming she's doing her hangout later today.
So
Yes, I was quiet because I'm getting a new roof on my house today.
A new what roof?
Screaming and bagging.
Yeah, that's fun to work with that kind of noise.
Oh my goodness. We're taking a little break now so I can talk, but I am here.
Do we have a topic tonight?
No, what you see is what you get.
Okay.
I do have some things I want to talk about though.
Okay. See you at 5:30.
See you at 5:30, everyone.
All right, I'll see y'all later.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. See you later.
Bye.